So today I wanted to talk about form versus content because I've been promising to do that, and it's really a cornerstone kind of idea in A Course in Miracles that if you can get this straight, all of a sudden it just starts to make sense. And thank you to Ken Wapnick for drumming it and drumming it and drumming it and drumming it because um, it's a hard idea to get to understand, and yet if we don't understand it, we get very confused and we think Jesus is telling us something and he's really telling us the opposite. All right, so and that's why A Course in Miracles doesn't lead to our happiness often, because we actually are not really understanding what it's saying. And of course, deep down, that's because we're afraid of what it's saying and we don't want to know what it's saying. Um, Interestingly, I feel to speak about lesson number 80, which is in the workbook, page 143. It says, "Let me recognize my problems have been solved." So I felt as I found that lesson, that would be a great backdrop for talking about form versus content, because in here Jesus is saying really seemingly impossible things. And we only can understand what he's saying if we understand form versus content. So he says, if you are willing to recognize your problems, you will recognize that you have no problems. Your one central problem has been answered, and you have no other. Therefore, you must be at peace. Salvation thus depends on recognizing this one problem and understanding that it has been solved. One problem, one solution. Salvation is accomplished. Freedom from conflict has been given you. Accept that fact, and you are ready to take your rightful place in God's plan for salvation. Okay, that's paragraph 1. Like, what? And then paragraph 2, he's going to hit it on us over the head with it again. Your only problem has been solved. This time he gives us an exclamation point. Repeat this over and over to yourself today with gratitude and conviction. You have recognized your only problem, opening the way for the Holy Spirit to give you God's answer. You have laid deception aside and seen the light of truth. You have accepted salvation for yourself by bringing the problem to the answer. And you can recognize the answer because the problem has been identified. Okay, so this lesson, what the heck is it saying? It's not saying anything about the problems, right? We're people, we're living, we have virus concerns, we have a political system that is in a free fall seemingly, and we've got, financial worries, and not to mention whatever our personal mental health issues are and what happens to be going on with our families, etc., etc. Okay, so how can he say what he's saying? Right? How can that be? What is he pointing to? This is where we have to take a step back and begin to comprehend that he is never, ever, ever talking about the forms in our life. Okay, what are the forms? Anything in the movie script, anything that seems to happen, anything about a body, including my own, or a psychological body, including my own, anything that's in time, that has a future or a past, anything that can change in any way, That is all script, and that is form, okay? But here's the shocker. Form is neutral. It has no meaning of its own because it's nothing. It, once again, going back to that big picture video, it's like the mirage in the desert. We think we see something and it's not really there. It has no meaning. Another good metaphor is if you were to go to a library of theatrical releases and those giant cans that they put the movie reels in, and you open a movie reel and you start flipping through the images, the frames on the celluloid. You're looking at the movie script. Well, there's no meaning in that, right? Those are just, even if you see somebody murdering, or you see a continent burning down, or you see all the things that have happened in 2020, the virus concerns and all of that, there's no meaning in that film that you're looking at. It's just shapes and shadows and forms, but they're empty. Okay, so where does the meaning come? The meaning comes from the teacher that we look at this movie with. That's the content. So we're living this movie script, and we're always, not knowingly, but we're always at a deep level listening to a teacher telling us what it all means, what it's all about, what's good and bad, what's dangerous and what's loving, all of that, okay? And for a seemingly long time, we've listened to the ego. And that has given the world its meaning. That was the content. And so we learned content from the ego that continually, in all these obvious and subtle ways, reinforced sin, guilt, and fear, sacrifice, murder, hate, and indirectly, but very powerfully, kept us identified as individuals. That's really the key here. That's why we're so attracted, because we think there is some kind of value in being a me. Okay? So that's the ego setup. So now Jesus, the entire way through this book, is trying in many different ways to wake up the mind, not wake up the person, wake up the mind to the fact that it's dreaming. And it says in lesson 80, to this mind, not to Laura, but to the mind, let me recognize my problems have been solved. Because there's only one, and that one problem is that I'm listening to the wrong teacher. And that's why I don't have peace. It has nothing to do with the president. It has nothing to do with the money. It has nothing to do with the viruses or the global warming or the children or the personal dynamics going on. Not really. It has to do with the attraction that I have to the ego's messages of sin, guilt, and fear, because there's a desire to be separate. So where do we go from here? Well, we're not expected to understand this at first, right? Jesus knows that everything, we're wired in such a way as avatars that this is completely incomprehensible. So he's saying, I'm going to live out this dream with you. I'm going to, as you allow me to, be in your little virtual reality game. I'm also made up because there is no game, not in truth. But I'm a made up idea that's going to help you. So yeah, Jesus and Holy Spirit, they're made up too, because once there's no problem, or there's no sleep, when the dream disappears, so will the solution to the dream. All right? So Jesus says, let me live this virtual reality game with you, and I will teach you my content of forgiveness, and that will lessen your attraction to sin, guilt, and fear. And you'll begin to feel attracted to the truth. And as soon as you want the truth more than you want the lie, it's yours, because there's nothing stopping you except for your desire. So I've got to help you see how much you really don't want the ego anymore. What he doesn't say is you need to change anything about your life in the world. He doesn't say we have to do anything different. You don't have to stop eating meat. You don't have to go to church. You don't have to go to a spiritual community. You don't have to be a certain way with people. In fact, he says it's actually more helpful to just allow him in right where you think you are. And he will use everything that the ego made to keep you asleep. He will use it all to awaken you. And remember, we said who we are in truth is the Son of God. We're asleep, and our best way to think of who we are asleep is as a decision maker. And so the curriculum that the Holy Spirit teaches is waking us up to that fact. That's all. Once we're awake and we see we're just a mind, and there's one mind, and I could choose peace and the Holy Spirit, that's the Course in Miracle teaching right there. That's where it's leading us to. Ken once said, in 500 years there may be something that comes next, but right now that's where he said A Course in Miracles gets you to that point where you see that you are really a mind and you are now learning Holy Spirit's lessons. And what's also really important to know about content is that when you're with someone, because really A Course in Miracles is a path that uses our relationships in the world. When you're with someone and you're in your ego, it's a special relationship. But any moment you choose the holy instant and choose to invite the Holy Spirit into your mind, it becomes the holy relationship. And there are people that will tell you otherwise, that believe that, you have holy relationships. Well, it's not like that. There's only one holy relationship. That's with the Holy Spirit. And then whoever whatever form you seem to be with, whether it's your computer or your child or your mate or your, colleague, then it's holy because of who you're listening to. And once you drop Jesus's hand, so to speak, and you pick up the egos again, and now you're back in specialness, and you're reinforcing your separate interests, okay? But Jesus knows we do that. So he's just saying, bring me all your relationships. And you have them with everyone and everything. So even if you don't have a significant relationship, you have one with your dog, you have one with your company, you have one with your money, you have one with your body and your world and your, political party, whatever. They're all relationships. They can be special or they can be made holy. So the other thing to remember is that holy looks like whatever it looks like. So when you are listening to the Holy Spirit, there isn't a certain form or certain words that you might say that would be holy versus other words. There's no action that you could take that would be intrinsically holy or egotistical, because all of that is form. It's who you're listening to that makes it holy. So you can be very ordinary in the world, and you can do all the same things. In fact, you might find it surprising that you are guided to do all the same things and not change a single thing about your life, because those forms which are neutral just get used to wake you up when you give them to the Holy Spirit. And every time you're listening to the Holy Spirit and you are allowing that Christ mind to flow through you, whether you seem to be at work or home doing something like washing the dishes or, talking to your kid, that is the Spirit working through you. You are teaching what you would learn when you allow that to happen. And that's undoing your attraction to guilt and your fear of God's love. So this is really important, right? Because if all of a sudden form has no meaning, it's only the meaning that my teacher gives it based on who I'm listening to, then I really don't know what anything is for. So it's all meaningless until I choose a teacher, right? So in the morning I wake up and I imagine the happy day that I want to have and the things that I want to happen to me and the way I want to feel and the peace and joy that I want to experience. And then I say, if I make no decisions on my own, then this is the day that will be given me. And then we listen and we follow the prompts. And maybe it's a very basic, ordinary day, but it's extraordinary because it's peaceful. And that's healing my mind and the world, right? You still go to work, you still do the dishes, you still have regular old conversations with regular old people, so to speak. And then something happens and you get tripped up and you get upset. And then you say, well, let me recognize that my problem's already been solved. Okay, why has my problem already been solved? Because my problem is not in the form. It's not in the flat tire. It's not why I'm upset. My problem is already solved because I'm home with God. The separation is over. It was ended as soon as the thought came up that it could happen at all. It was over. And I'm just taking time to accept it. So at any point, I can put the Holy Spirit back in charge of my day and remember God's peace. Doesn't matter what's happening. The form has no power. The mind has all the power, and who I choose to listen to is determining what I would feel and experience, no matter what seems to be going on. On paragraph 6, it says, assure yourself often today that your problems have been solved. Repeat the idea with deep conviction as frequently as possible, and be particularly sure to apply the idea for today to any specific problem that may arise. Say quickly, let me recognize this problem has been solved. And why again has it been solved? Because the problem is not the way I set it up. It's never anything external in the world. The problem is that I chose the teacher of sin, guilt, and fear, and I can choose again. Let us be determined not to collect grievances today. Let us be determined to be free of problems that do not exist. He is not being metaphorical, he is being literal. Nothing here really exists. Nothing here can affect my peace of mind. And it's okay when it seems to happen. Jesus is saying, just remember quickly to pick up my hand, recognize that your problem isn't your problem. Your problem is you're attracted again to the teacher of problems and sin and guilt and fear and murder. But I'm here with you, and it's okay. It's safe to feel God's love and let that flow through your life. The past is literally over, right? You're just playing out. Every time you get upset, you're playing out this imagined event where we murdered God and he's really mad and we hate God. You're playing it out over and over and over and over and over. It's like a big echo that never ends. But it's not real, and it's not happening now. And any time we want, we can remember it. Just let go. I don't want that anymore. It's not real. I see only the past. I could choose peace instead of this. I am never upset for the reason I think. Let me recognize my problems have been solved. Okay, so that's form and content. So there are no spiritual forms. And we don't know our best way home. We don't know our best way to awaken. So don't try to rearrange the deck chairs on the Titanic, so to speak. Right? That's just a futile exercise to rearrange and reorganize the forms of your life. Just receive in the Holy Spirit's gentle guidance, right? And sometimes, we are led to make changes, but it feels, when it's the Holy Spirit guidance, it feels very natural You just kind of take this gentle step. That's one of the hallmarks of a Holy Spirit. There's no urgency or demand or, you know. So if I've been in a painful relationship, it may be very much a good time to change that. So steps may happen in the world, but the most important change has happened in the mind. And if we don't make the change in the mind first, then we just keep choosing the same content no matter who we seem to be with, okay? So the form in our lives become much more free. We become less bound to them. We have less allegiance to them because our allegiance is to the Holy Spirit, who we know will use the forms in our life to get us home. So the same investment starts to weaken. It's less and less important. The roles that I have and the people that I'm with, they're all either the Holy Spirit speaking to me or the ego speaking to me. Right? No matter what the words are or the behaviors are. And we can be happy and joyful wherever we are. So I hope this has been helpful. And I will talk to you soon.